Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. Do you have go-to color combos? You know, the colors that no matter what, when you're feeling uninspired, you don't have any ideas, they're just your go-to. Well, for me, that is like teals, greens, purples, blues, basically anything on that cool side of the color wheel. Those are my go-tos. I know they're not going to let me down. This twisted citron is a little bit brighter than what I would normally do, but I thought it'd be fun to add a pop. I also have peacock feathers, wilted violet, villainous potion, blueprint sketch, and mermaid lagoon. Some really pretty colors. I also grabbed my ink blending tools and my blending brushes. And for stamps, I grabbed the Thoughtful Tokens. This is the September stamp of the month from Close to My Heart. It is available just this month, and you can get it free if you're a VIP, or you can get it for $6.75 with a $60 order. Now, this video is part of a collab with my friends Julie and Janice. I'll make sure to link their videos down below, and at the end of this video, we're all using that same stamp set and doing different things with it, so make sure you check out their videos. I'm starting off my first card with Wilted Violet, and this is just on top of White Daisy cardstock. I'm going for a very intense color on the right hand side and then just kind of a blown out edge fading out to white on the left. And the best way to do that, I think, is by using blending brushes. So the inking tool, the ink blending tool, and blending brushes have very different uses, I think, when it comes to Oxide inks. If you're trying to do really heavy coverage, I think the ink blending tool does a better job. But if you want this soft, diffused, like blown out edge, nothing does it better than a blending brush. And I know there's lots of different styles out there. This is the style that I have, and I really enjoy it. Works really good for me. My second color here is Mermaid Lagoon. Such a pretty blue color. I love this color. And now I'm just going back and forth between the two colors. That's how you get really good blends, is just patience and layering and just going back and forth between the two colors, continuing to add more until you're happy with the blend that you have. Usually I find blends look smoother in person than they do on camera, so you can always keep that in mind too. Now I'm adding peacock feathers, which is a gorgeous green color, and it blends perfectly with the Mermaid Lagoon. Now, if you don't have a go-to color combo yet, I encourage you to find one. So I would look for what is your favorite color. If you don't have a combo that just like pops into your head, what's your favorite color? And then pick a couple of other shades or a couple other colors that will mix really pretty with it. Right? So let's say your favorite color is orange. You could pick yellow and pink or yellow and red. Or if your favorite color is yellow, you could pick green and blue. Just something like that where you know that you can reach for those colors, you can blend them all together, and you're going to get a pretty result. And it doesn't really matter what brand or what exact shades, but you just have that color combo in the back of your mind for those times that you don't feel inspired. So here is my blended panel. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It fades off really nice on that left-hand side. And now I have my 4-inch masking paper from Close to My Heart. I'm just going to cut off a piece, and then I'm going to stamp this circular design from the stamp set. It is my favorite image from the stamp, so I'm going to use it a lot today because, of course, it has a butterfly, and I love butterflies. So I'm just grabbing some black ink and I'm going to stamp it out on my mask. If you don't have masking paper, you could always use a piece of printer paper with some removable adhesive on the back side, but I love this because it's sticky all the way around. I'm going to cut this out with my scissors right on that black line. You want to make sure you're right on the black line so that you have a proper mask. And then I'm going to use my stamp platform and my Archival black ink to stamp right on my panel. Now, it didn't have a great transfer because I keep forgetting to re-ink this stamp pad. I use it and I'm like, oh, I really need to re-ink it. And then I put it away when my project's done, and the next time I go to use it, it still needs to be re-inked. It's very frustrating. I don't like re-inking while I'm using it because you end up with like blobs of ink and it just doesn't work. I want to be able to set it aside and let it soak into the pad. And when I'm crafting, there's no time to wait for that to soak in. I got things to do. So now I am applying my mask over top of that, and I'm going to continue to add images from the stamp set, kind of like a collage. So when you're doing this, you want to remember, what image do you want in the forefront? What do you want to be kind of the focal point and in the front of all your collaged images? For me, that was the circle. So I stamped it first and then I masked it off. So everything that I add after this will overlap that masked area and will look like it is behind that circle. I needed one more image, so I'm using this little kind of like flourish scroll design from the set, and then down here at the bottom, I thought I'd add that film strip. I'm loving how this is looking with those like bold black designs. It still needs more in my opinion. I didn't feel like it was quite done though. So I think what I'm going to do is try and add another row of that film strip, just a little bit shorter, to fill in that bottom corner so it's not such a straight L, kind of like reverse L design. So kind of had to reposition everything in my stamp platform so that I could stamp just like a little section of that film strip. I am using my stamp platform for this. You wouldn't need to, but between my Archival ink pad that desperately needs to be re-inked and the fact that I knew I wanted this to be the blackest black. I really wanted that intense black design, and I figured I'd probably have to double stamp some things to get that as dark and complete coverage as I wanted. So that's why I'm using the platform, because then if I mess up or things just aren't transferring, I can fix it. Now for this one, this is actually a longer design. It has two kind of postage stamps and postage marks together. I cut it in half to use it. And I'm using the first half here. I use that plastic bag to help me position it without getting black ink all over my nice crisp white card there. And now I'm actually using the second half of that design. Don't worry, when you do stamp surgery, you can put them back together on a block and they'll stamp like no problem. But I figure I'd want to use these separately. So I go ahead and I'm just stamping that second part of that image that has the little postage stamp on it. And I love how that looks, but it's very dark compared to the rest that I have in that corner. So I'm going to use my little plastic bag trick here to reposition it so that I can stamp just part of it so it's overlapping what I've already stamped there. And just so that the one little black rectangle doesn't stand out so much, it'll blend in a little bit better. And once I get this on here, I think I better stop. I think I'm out of room for adding more stamping. You know, you've reached that point where it's like, if I add anything else, I think I'm going to start hating it. And I was like, all right, I need a sentiment. I hadn't really planned out where my sentiment was going to go. So I had this sending you a hug, and I was thinking maybe I should stamp it and heat emboss it in white. But then I grabbed the happy birthday from the stamp of the month, and thankfully, photopolymer stamps curve nicely. So I curved it to see if I could get it to fit around this circle. It worked great. So I went ahead and stamped it. It's a very subtle sentiment, right? It kind of blends in if you're not looking for it. I went ahead and matted it with a very thin mat of black cardstock and then mounted it onto my white card base. So I didn't want to add too much more at this point. I grabbed some silver glitter gems and I'm just adding them to the butterfly. I was thinking about adding them to a few points up on the other designs there, but then I thought, you know what? It takes your eye away from where I want it to go. I want the eye to come down to the bottom corner here. That's where the sentiment is. That's where the butterfly is. So I very carefully removed that one glitter gem. I don't press these things down until I'm sure they're going to stay there. And that's all I'm going to add. I am so happy with how this turned out, and I love the contrast of that black against that beautiful blend of colors. You know, that's probably one of the biggest perks of using a go-to color combo. You're always happy, or usually happy, with the results. If you have a favorite color combo, whether you have specific names of colors or just colors in general that you love and your go-tos, put them down in the comments because I would love to hear your ideas. And if you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a like. It really helps out my channel, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Now back to the card. I am just blending Wilted Violet. I love this purple color. I'm trying to make sure that it's big enough for that stamped image and kind of comes out past it. Then I'm reaching for this new pack of Slimline stencils that are in the Essentials catalog that just launched. And I love this beautiful design. I'm sure I will be using this one quite a bit. And I like the corners on it. So I just taped my card panel down to my all-purpose mat so that it's not running away on me. And then I'm going to use some washi tape to hold down my stencil. I'm making sure that the openings of my stencil go right over top of the edge of my panel because I don't want to have a harsh line. I'm using some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink. And yes, this is not in my color combo, but neutrals are always a good thing. And I'm just going to shift the stencil over as I need to for each of the four corners because it has a really pretty kind of corner design, and I'm trying to not get too much ink on there. So I'm starting the ink off of the edge of my stencil and then just bringing it in a little ways. I want to keep it constrained pretty close to the edges. On the bottom, I can come in a little bit further because I have that larger white area to work with. But I wanted to make sure at the top that I'm not overlapping that purple area. And just because it's a slimline size stencil doesn't mean you can only use it on slimline cards. So as you can see here, this panel is 4¼ by 5½, and it works perfectly for what I need it to do. Sometimes you have to just think outside the box if something is just a slightly different size or isn't exactly what you were thinking you wanted. But I think this actually worked out better than if this was an exactly 4¼ by 5½-inch stencil. So now it's time to do some stamping. I'm bringing over my platform again, and I'm going to be stamping this a few times because I want to layer this up and create kind of a dimensional embellishment in this top third of my card. So because I have parts of the design that overlap the edges of that circle, and they would not really look good fussy cut, what I'm going to do is use my plastic again to help me position it perfectly onto my panel because my stamp has black residue on it. So I would need to clean it really well to put it directly on there and not get like little black smudges. So the plastic is just a quick and easy solution to help me protect my card. So I did stamp it a couple times to get it as nice and dark as I wanted it to. And now I am just going to let this sit and dry while I work on the other pieces. I mean, that's beautiful all by itself. I could actually just slap a sentiment on it and call it done if I wanted to. But this is me, so we're not going to do that. I grabbed peacock feathers and blueprint sketch, and I'm starting with peacock feathers first in the center and then grabbing blueprint sketch and going around the outside. Now, this isn't a huge piece, so I'm trying really hard not to go in too far with the blueprint sketch, keep it a little bit closer to the outside. And I was kind of working blind a little bit because I'm planning on stamping that same circle embellishment or that same circle stamp on top of this, but I didn't have it on the piece. And so I was just kind of guessing at how far I should bring each of the colors. You can see I'm doing the same thing, overlapping. With this solid of an ink coverage, I should have just grabbed the ink blending tool with the foam on it. It would have been so much faster, but I was already using the brushes, so I just kept going with that. But I would definitely recommend if you're trying to get solid coverage like this, grab those ink blending tools. It's faster and easier. Now, something else that I should have done right there is dry that piece. I had a heck of a time trying to get this stamped, and I wish I would have dried that Distress Oxide ink before trying to stamp it. So, lesson learned. On this next piece of white, I'm going to blend some colors just for the butterfly. Now, this time, I stamped my stamp when almost all the ink was off. There was just like a shadow outline so that I could see that butterfly and know where I was putting my colors. So I highly recommend that. It made adding my colors a lot easier, and I was very happy with the finished product of where the inks ended up. I'm loving this pop of the Twisted Citron with the peacock feathers. I think those colors look beautiful together, and it really stands out when you have all those deep blues and purples in the background. And since it is a green, it blends really pretty with the peacock feathers. They're both greens, they're just very different shades of green. This time I learned my lesson and I dried it with my heat tool and then I stamped it and cut it out. So I didn't show you the cutting out process because it's pretty basic. So when I cut out the circle, I just cut off any of the butterfly that was hanging over, the leaves that were hanging over. I wanted just the circle out of that blue piece and then just the butterfly out of the other piece. Now I'm going around with a black marker and I am just coloring up those edges because I didn't like how it looked with the white edge, and just filling those in with the black. I got to switch to the thin end, the bullet end here, to get in all the little crevices of the butterfly, but I think it just adds a really nice finishing touch. I love doing this technique with stamps that have kind of a bold image, but they have this background that you can't really fussy cut well, and it's a great way to kind of layer things up and add different colors without blending them all together. Now, before I attach everything, I want to stamp my sentiment, so I'm just going to use black ink and this Thinking of You from the stamp set, and just stamp that right at the edge of the purple there. Now, for some reason, I had a heck of a time trying to get this straight. And did I stamp it straight? No, I did not. But was I going to redo it? No, I was not. So we just move on. Put your card on a slight angle and look, it's straight. So I'm just adhering this to my white card base, just flat, didn't pop it up or anything, because I'm going to pop up the next two elements. I'm using thin foam tape, and I put it on the back of the ring here and on the back of the butterfly, and I'm just lining up those images, make sure they line up with the background image so that it all flows together really nicely. And there we have it. I thought about adding some glitter gems, but then I decided it doesn't need it. So you can see my little bit of dimension there. It's a really fun card. Now, typically, I would look at this stamp set and be like, okay, I want to do soft, vintagey, browns, that kind of thing. But I thought this time, you know what? Let's go bold. Let's use those same images and pop them with some vibrant colors and some contrast from the black. I love how these turned out. Make sure you guys go and check out Janice's and Julie's videos. They're linked right here on the screen. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.